Okay, so these are just some glances at some of the pages from the book. This is Deadpool, basically demonstrating how he can get his head blown off, but it could still regrow, and yet you can see over here that the neurons, they start one way, and then when they regrow, they start mostly the same. They occupy most of the same connections, but within his case, they don't always hit their mark, and so this is kind of explains how he's kind of going a little always off the rails a little bit. These are just different spreads from the book. So I really wanted a chance to show Ghost Rider's face burning off, in stages. When I was little, I really used to love drawing skulls and that kind of thing. And so this was right up my alley in that regard.
Welcome to another episode of 3D Art Show with Gabe. I'm your host, Gabe, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing a character artist from Bethesda Game Studio, or formerly of Bethesda, who also has done a fabulous book on the anatomy of Marvel characters and a whole lot more. We have today Jonah Lobe. Jonah, how are you today, sir?
I'm great. Thanks very much for having me on here today.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I'm admiring your background right now. I love you've got the awesome masks and you've got the skeletons and the skulls. That's really cool. I love seeing the inspiration for other artists, and I'm assuming that that's where a lot of your inspiration comes from, in part
Oh,
at
yeah.
least. So
I
cool.
love collecting little knickknacks and little fascinating little things that kind of make my brain percolate.
Yeah, it's very cool. Right before this interview started, I know you and I were having a little bit of a pre-interview chat about the purpose of this show and our desired audience and why I'm doing it. And I think I was telling you about an interesting spot in my career where I got a career originally in engineering that is very, very math heavy, very programmatic heavy. And I had originally a podcast in mathematics called the Breaking Math Podcast. And then I somehow got a job making 3D models for the government, and that has a lot of crossover with art. And then I just fell in love with the artistic aspect of building models for certain specifications. I get to make a building, for example, and then I'm told to destroy it in however way I want to. Like say there was an earthquake or a fire, so I got to be artistic and use ZBrush and all that stuff. And oh my gosh, it's ridiculously fun. It's so much fun. So that's the purpose of this show. And originally, I was asked if I wanted to do my Breaking Math podcast on a live TV format, and I said no. I would rather do a modern digital version of 3D art. A modern digital version of Bob Ross's show, where we just do fun art with digital tools and have a blast with it. So yeah, and then with that, I just started to. Rather than prepare an episode myself, I'm doing a lot of interviews instead, and that's where I found you. So,
Fantastic.
Fun stuff.
Great.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Anyways, in preparation for this interview, I have been chatting with some other of your colleagues from Bethesda Studios. One of them of which, of course, is Nathan Prokopile. We've been chatting. He sent me 5 questions that I thought would be a great intro to this episode, if that's all right. I'm sure
bring it.
You've known Nate for many years?
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Since
Okay.
2006 or something like that.
Oh, okay, very good, very good. The first thing that Nate wanted me to ask you about is the story of the giants that you designed and where you got your inspiration. I thought that would be a cool spot to start with, and we'll even show a picture of the giant as well.
Sure, yeah. So Skyrim was the second full AAA game that I worked on at Bethesda, and I really loved the idea of a world of Skyrim where not everything was out to get you, that there was a full-blown ecosystem and world that you were getting a glimpse at. So when you saw the giants in the game, I didn't want you to just see another monster that you could bash on the head. I feel like these are large shepherds. They are peaceful by nature. I think it should be much more interesting to just watch them than to kill them, although it should be fun to try to fight them as well. So to get across that feeling of personality and of humanity, I thought about what it was like when I was little, and I looked up at my dad and how big your parent seems, and so I wanted that same feeling. So I kind of stuck it in there. My dad is bald with a beard, very distinctive features, and I thought I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to make him look like my dad. So yeah, I think not a lot of people know that, but it's at this point now, my dad has been killed millions and millions of times by people
Very
all over
cool.
the
Very
world.
cool. Very cool. I'd like to actually pull up a picture of the sculpture as well, so we can see what you're talking about. And what I loved, and I don't know if this is the Instagram, but there's one of them where we can actually move the giant around.
Oh yeah.
Wow, very cool. So is that your dad's face right there, or basically based on your dad's face?
Yeah, it's based on my dad's face. A little bit of blend of my uncle as well, but I wanted something that felt kind of wizened and looked like a person who could be standing out in the rain for 200 years, just standing there with the sun and the rain and the and the mists and all that. I wanted something that felt lived in, not just fantastical.
Wow. I love the stories behind the art. I'm going to ask you one technical question. I don't know if my audience prefers the technical ones or not. This was designed probably, 2007, 2008?
Probably 2009 or 2010, probably.
Oh, very cool. In the years since then, have you seen drastic increases in the capabilities of the tools that you use?
Yes, certainly. Although I have not in the last 10 years worked very much in 3D. I've kind of skipped over to the world of 2D, like concept art and illustration, that kind of thing. So I'm definitely behind the curve. I think if you looked at that model now, it holds up well, but it's showing its age, just like my father. But what I've seen recently these days, I mean, the bar just goes up and up and up.
Nice, yeah. That's the fun part about digital art, is just all the possibilities. I'm just simply mesmerized by it myself. So, okay, I got a few other questions from Nate here. He also said, can you tell us about the dragon language and any Easter eggs that you may have hidden in the dragon language?
I did not hide anything in the dragon language per se, but I did use the dragon language to vandalize something in the game. And that is the dragon bone plate armor. If you were able to acquire that, you spend all those dozens of hours smithing iron daggers, and now you can finally make your dragon plate armor, the dragon bone. Along the armband there's both a round bone that's meant to be like kind of the bone that goes around the eyeball of the dragon. Most times I wouldn't imagine that a dragon would have a bone around the eyeball, but what I was thinking of those kind of hard-shelled fish, like the Dunkleosteus from prehistoric times. Anyway, there's one of those inset into an iron band, and around the iron band there's ancient dragon languages chiseled into the iron. And if you take the time to decode it, it says Jonah Lobe.
Nice, very cool. I think that'd be one of the most fun parts about being an animator or a game developer, is just putting little Easter eggs in. I asked a similar question to Nate when he came on, and he told me that almost 100% of the time, people find his Easter eggs. There are none of them that are hidden, and he's just amazed at how the masses work. And all of his eggs have been found, or rather, that's what he says. So interesting. Now, there's one more question from Nate, and I have to preface this with, please don't kill the messenger.
Oh, no.
From Nate, he says, ask Jonah if he is the long-lost brother of Ryan Gosling.
I am the ugly brother of Ryan Gosling. It's true.
He's not the long-lost brother. He did not say ugly.
I have labored too long under his shadow.
Okay. He then says, LOL, he's going to kill me for asking that. So, well, I asked. So thanks, anyways. Thanks for being a good sport.
In all the years since Skyrim, I've never been asked that question. Nate.
Okay, very good. Awesome. Alrighty, so I think with our preparation for the interview, I talked a bit about how I like to do our show with demonstrations. I had my first guest did a demo where he just did an on-the-fly sculpture. He did an alien plant that allowed him to be abstract and just kind of free, and he did a really great job. My second guest did an alien head to go with the alien plant. Mm-hmm. Is it okay if we put you on the spot and have you do a little demo for us, like a 10-minute either sketch or sculpture?
Yeah, sure. I have not touched ZBrush in quite a long time, so I'm opening up now. So I might fumble at some point and suddenly lose my abilities altogether. But I'm willing to give it a shot for the viewing audience.
Oh, That is fantastic. Yeah. Now, in terms of what you would do, I of course would leave it totally up to you. But I also love prompts for inspiration. I love the idea of doing alien plants because it gives so much freedom. I also love. One of these times I'd love to do a Bob Ross tribute, since this show is inspired so heavily by him. Do you have any favorite places to get inspiration from?
I don't have any favorite place. I'm very inspired by the natural world. I'm very inspired by history, that kind of thing. I think if you are a concept artist, or if you're somebody who likes to work in sci-fi or fantasy, what have you, by far the best references you can use are the real world. The real world is so much more interesting and detailed than the things that come out of our head. Even though it's my job to come up with really, really cool, unique stuff that no one's ever seen, I still have to always go to the source, which is reality. So yeah. But for today, you told me that you were gonna push me to do a little thing, and so I figured I would jump on a tiny little project that I've been meaning to jump on for a while. I have a little character that I'm developing. I'm going to make him for my first graphic novel ever. I'll start with just one comic, and we'll see where it goes from there. But I fully intend, now that Marvel Anatomy is finished, to start working on some of my own stuff. And so I have a little cartoon character. His name is Quiet. He's very cute. And while I normally illustrate him in 2D, I think what I've been really meaning to do is create a little 3D model of him, so that it's a good reference for me. And then when I do the Kickstarter for the graphic novel, what have you, I can make like little miniature, printed versions of him, that kind of thing. Let's start it up. So I divided. He's a skeleton, so I've divided him into pieces here. And I'm going to be focusing a lot on the general shape of him. And so one thing that makes him very recognizable, he's got kind of this like belly, like a big belly. I think I had the idea for him shortly after I had a kid. And so I think that this is one of those characters because he's kind of whimsical. And because I was looking at like my little kid when I started coming up with this idea, I think there's something very like childlike about this character that I want to get across. So one of those things that I have to kind of nail is the shape of the torso and that little kind of like protruding little paunch. He's a little like frijole bean shape. And of course, if you have any questions or anything about like that as I go about the world, my plans, whatever, please feel free to jump in whenever.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, I would love to know, like the entire story of the Giants and how it's based on your dad. I'd love to hear anything about the world with this character. You describe him as having a paunch, which that's my dad as well. Yeah. Let us know anything else. What was your inspiration for this character?
That's a good question. I had I'll go in and start working on the face a little bit. It was during the pandemic, and I wanted to create times were tough, times were scary. Nobody knew what was going on, and I just kind of wanted to create something that I could put on Instagram that people would find relaxing and charming. I wanted to go for something whimsical, and if you know me and you follow me on social media, etc., you know that I love horror and I love things that are horrible, and because those are so monster making is kind of my thing. So I wanted to do something unexpected for me. I wanted to do something that that would actually cheer people up. And so I created this little series of videos, and each video was basically me, clay tubes, was basically me telling the story, telling one chapter of the story of Quiet, which is a little like fairy tale style thing, and then you get to watch me with real pen and ink draw what's happening in the image. And so every video was 1 minute long, and it was just this like little charming, little cute thing. And people really responded to it. I was kind of surprised. It it's been one of those things where I only post about it a few times. I have hundreds of posts on Instagram, and whenever I tell somebody, "Oh, I've been thinking about doing this graphic novel, etc." I have this little character. They all go. Everyone says like, "Oh, is that like Silence or whatever his name is?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, it's Quiet. Quiet is his name." But everyone remembers him. They're like, "Oh, that guy's really cute." So when people kept saying that, it made me feel like, "Oh, okay, like this is a character that actually people are responding to." And obviously, I worked very hard to kind of create a character that sticks in your mind and that you can relate to. And it seemed like it worked. It worked. So I've been thinking a lot about what it's like to be an independent creator, what I want to do with my time, what I want to create. I got to work on games like Skyrim and Fallout. I got to work on this Marvel Anatomy book, but I have yet to create something that is my own intellectual property and that is 100% my own work. So while my fingerprints are all over these other, franchises, etc., I want something that is all mine, and so that is part of why I'm doing this.
Nice, very cool. Yeah, I love what you said about the challenge. I shouldn't say challenge, but the journey of doing something that is cute and cozy versus doing horror. I also am fascinated by horror as well, and gosh, that even goes back to when I was a child. I think I was watching Toy Story, the first one, and the entire scene of everyone being in the toys being in
The scary boys
house.
room.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's horrifying.
Yeah.
I
You had this.
love the spider baby head
That's
is
exactly what I was going to say.
it's one of the best. It's
Yeah.
one of the best designs. It's extraordinarily creepy. Extraordinarily
Yeah.
creepy. Yeah.
It just like stretches our understanding of things. Like, I think that as humans we're programmed to identify some things as dangerous and some things as cute and adorable, and it messes with it. You know what I mean? Like just the baby head with the erector set, that was creepy, and then the doll legs that had or the Barbie legs that had the fishing rod
Oh yeah.
attached to it. It was so eerie. But still, I was a child at that time, so that was my very young exposure to horror. And I don't know, I've been fascinated by it. And there's a quote that I have used many times on this show as well. And the quote is, "Great art should comfort the disturbed and disturb the comforted." And I think creepy art does that, in a way that's. I struggle to describe why I'm impressed by it. But then cute art, that also can be, I don't want to use the word challenge, but like a worthy thing to try and do. There is a comic book artist locally that I know that spent some time in Japan. And he said that culturally, he was really impressed with when he would have a device like a cell phone. This is from like 15 years ago. And the cell phone would break. There would be a cartoon animated picture of a sad face that's sick. And it would like elicit feelings of pity and sadness from the user instead of frustration with a broken phone. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's brilliant.
So yeah. So I don't know. I love that. I love that. And also, I heard that there are vehicles and oh my goodness, I don't want to say I don't remember if it was Japan or China. You had automated street vehicles with no driver, and they would add eyes on it, and the eyes would look whichever direction the vehicle was going to turn in, and it's like cut down drastically in accidents, and it's just cute and very relatable. So yeah, I don't know. I love cute representations of things,
I think everyone does, and I think too often cutesy can go overboard, But I think when you are focusing on cute with regards to forging human connection with your audience, that's where I think you can do some really, really great stuff. So the really cutesy stuff is not really necessarily my thing, but with a project like this and with kind of what you're talking about, there's an emphasis on using cute things to forge a connection with your audience, and that's really what I'm going for. And I think it's interesting. It's also interesting to do coming from the perspective of somebody who does mostly horrible things, because I don't know. I don't just do it automatically because I like cute things. It's like I'm thinking more clearly about what is cute, and then how can I blend the line also because I like a weird world. My villain in this world is a human. He's like a huge kind of barbarian type character. I think I got the idea of this character, from like Diablo, basically, where this guy walks in and in the level one dungeon, he just goes careening into the level one dungeon, killing all the skeletons, taking all the loot, and just walking off to level two. And I think I kind of got this idea for Quiet when I kind of thought to myself, well, what if the skeletons are not evil? What if they're all just living peacefully down there? And then one day, this huge hulking barbarian comes running in, killing everybody and everything you know, steals all your riches, kills all your friends, and then leaves to go off to level two. If you're the one level one skeleton that's left over, you're going to be like, somebody has to stop this guy. Like this, he's a monster. So this is the idea of Quiet being this little level one skeleton, basically, but who he realizes if he doesn't try to go after the villain who's going off to, who's massacred everything in level two and gone off to level one and gone off to level two, if he doesn't go stop him, maybe no one will, So it's a nice, like, kind of putting things on its head, so in this case, like the undead are the good, but they're still undead, right? So that kind of confluence of cute and creepy,
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I love it. That's so cool. There was another demo that you actually did that I saw, I believe it was on your YouTube channel, where you did monsters in the style of Elden Ring. And in that one, it was one where you did a king and his council all molded together into one creature. That was incredible. That was obviously more horror-based, and it wasn't really cute, but it was incredible. Now, I was curious. There's a Japanese anime that made me think of. Are you familiar with, 2001 Inuyasha?
What is it called?
Inuyasha.
No, I'm afraid not.
Okay. It's a Japanese anime, and I bring it up because it is a combination of cutesy animals like Pokemon and absolutely horrendous creatures, which they just blanket call the demons in that game. Now, I don't know how, it's not demon quite like in the Western sense. It's just like something out there that's, not friendly. And the main demon is very similar to the creature that you made, where it's a ghoul. Sorry, it's a thief who sold his soul and invited like a horde of 1,000 demons to cannibalize his body, and it forms this giant conglomeration of a thief or a human with like parts of spiders and centipedes and beetles, and it's just this gnarly conglomeration creature. It's kind of in the same sense. Your king and his council. I'll have to put a picture of that up in the podcast episode. I'll see if I can do that. But anyways,
please, yeah.
I just thought, it's another show where you've got lots of things that are really, really cute and fuzzy and fun and horrible and disgusting all in one. And the show is fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I don't know. It's just it's fun to try to capture both of those elements as an artist.
I completely agree.
So, yeah. And what I'd like to do is, I know that this demo will be like a 10 or 12 minute demo. If you happen to work on this more, and if we run out of time and you finish it, please send me a little clip. I'll be happy to insert it into the episode so our audience can enjoy the finished product.
Yeah, happy to.
Awesome, fantastic. All right.
How much time do we have left on this thing?
I think we have 1 minute.
Oh my goodness.
Yep.
Okay.
I know, time flies, huh? I have only experienced sculpting in Blender so far, but I've loved it. I think it's fantastic. I've seen a couple of... Sorry, what?
I think if it weren't for sculpting like this, I don't think I would have been in the game industry in the same way. I think it allows me, like, it's a really elegant pipeline for someone like myself, who's very artistic, and I'm kind of the opposite of you. I'm kind of very artistic and not technical at all. And so it was the perfect on-ramp for someone who's very artistic to do something that is seems so unattainable, which is like through this 3D animation, 3D modeling.
Nice. Actually, I'd love to hear about that. So a lot of my audience in New Mexico is high schoolers who are into both traditional art and digital art, and I'm sure lots of them are curious about a segue into the gaming industry. Lots of, especially those who are very creative and may not necessarily be technical. Maybe, maybe or perhaps not. So I'm curious how you first got into digital sculpting or digital art in general, and then how that led you eventually to work in the game industry.
Yeah, I think when I picked up a copy of Jurassic Park, the making of Jurassic Park, when I was around 12 or something, it blew my mind. I kind of couldn't believe that one could actually, for a living, make dinosaurs. And so I thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool if I made dinosaurs or other fantasy things? And so I really, that became kind of a guiding light for me as I entered college and everything. And I just went to a normal art. I knew I wanted to do art for a living, but I didn't know what kind. I didn't go to art school, but I was an art major. And I basically, after college, realized that, well, I could get a job in movies, but I would probably be spending a lot of time working on the blades of grass tech instead of actually having ownership over like a lot of the game or a lot of the product, because movies are so big and so many pieces. I just felt like that would probably assembly line me too much, and so I decided I would aim for game companies. And Bethesda Softworks was a game company that I had learned about in my last year of college, and they also happened to be very close to me. I was in Tacoma Park, Maryland, and they were in Bethesda, Maryland, or rather Rockville, Maryland. They actually weren't in Bethesda, and so I had applied to them twice before for roles that they weren't really offering, and I never heard back. And then I just applied a third time after I graduated college. Well, actually, I applied a second time after I graduated college, didn't hear back. And then when I realized I had to work on my portfolio, I spent time working on my portfolio for about 6 months, and I reapplied, and that's when I heard back from them and got an art test and got in. So that was my intro to the gaming world.
Very cool. With your portfolio, was that stuff that you all did in ZBrush or other digital art?
At the time, ZBrush was relatively new. This is back in 2005-ish. So ZBrush was still kind of cutting edge. And actually, not a lot of people at Bethesda even knew how to use it. And so I do think that knowing how to use ZBrush did help me a lot. But no, it was a demonstrate. I had to demonstrate proficiency in the entire character art pipeline, which was sculpting, low poly modeling, UV mapping, and then low asset game ready model creation.
Nice, very cool. Before you got your job at Bethesda, how much experience did you have in all of that? And I'm asking that for our high schoolers who dream of going into game dev.
I didn't really have. That was my first job out of college. I'd worked other jobs throughout college, but nothing that had anything to do with my dream. So I kind of just really lucked out with that first one. But I took a class my junior and senior year of college that was computer art. And that's where I learned how to do 3D modeling, the fundamentals of animation, that kind of thing. It was not very good class, but the teacher gave us a lot of freedom to explore and rewarded that exploration. And so as long as he saw that I was constantly trying to learn new things and attempt new things, he gave me a good grade. Now, unfortunately, when I came out of college, I realized I still didn't have what it took, technically speaking. But once I learned how to refine my portfolio in such a way as to, basically demonstrate mastery of a particular subject, in this case, character art, then I was able to land a job. Nice. So that was my tact. Is I stayed at home for 6 to 8 months after college, and just worked 40, 50 hours a week developing a new updated portfolio, and that demonstrated that I could do that, and that's what landed me the job.
Awesome. All right, yeah. And then if you want to stop sharing the screen, that way we can see your face again. That would be incredible. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Jonah. I really appreciate that. Again, I'm trying to think, for our audience. So we have the Albuquerque Game Developers Guild, and there's game developers, in every major city that I'm aware of, and a bunch of students at UNM who tune in to the show. So essentially, hypothetically, it's possible if you know the pipeline, the industry pipeline, and if you do a good portfolio, that's probably the best bet for getting in at a game studio. Is that what you would say?
Yeah, I think learning a pipeline is important. I think being able to prove to a company that you are plug and play from day one, I think is probably a good way to get in. I think at least at an entry level, being a generalist might not work in your favor. Yeah, I think later on down the line you can afford to kind of have acquired a broad range of skills. But if you have a broad range of skills as a youngin, people are going to think that range of skills might be broad, but it doesn't go very deep.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I also heard from Nate on his episode. I think it's worth mentioning again. Those who are really good at doing mods, and if you can demonstrate, a mod, so you know the constraints of making a game. That's a very good way of showing your aptitude, and they like to see that. I've actually thought about for a newsletter with this episode or with this show. I'd like to interview, say, maybe the human resources department at a game studio, and just see, who their most successful hires are from, and just like make a criteria list, for our listeners. Now, real quick, for the next segment, I would love to focus on your recent project, the Marvel Anatomy book. That is something I would love to talk about, and I know there's a lot on your Instagram, as well as on ArtStation, and everything else that you have on your website as well. Can we ask, before we take a look at it, how did you get involved with this Marvel book?
Yeah, I think I was found by the publisher. So I didn't work directly with Marvel. I worked through a publisher called Insight, and they had this idea for this book for a while, and they'd gotten the manuscript ready for it, and they were looking for the perfect illustrator. And so I think because of my social media following on Twitter and Instagram, one of the publishers at the publishing house had been following me for a while and ended up reaching out to see if I was interested, and it just kind of was, I am really fascinated by anatomy, as demonstrated by my character work in games like Skyrim and Fallout. And this was kind of a unique enough opportunity to do something weird and different, and also a very unique opportunity for me to create canon for a huge, a huge base of entertainment.
Fantastic. Awesome. How long did this project take? Or rather, how long was your involvement with it?
My involvement was about 15 months altogether. But it was a very condensed 15 months. I was working very hard. It's a 230-page book, so it took just a lot of work. Awesome.
Very cool. So, Amanda, I'd love to show some of the Marvel stuff if you have, and I think there is some of that on ArtStation. There's also a lot on Instagram. I don't know, Jonah, if you have a preference, like is there a favorite repository of the artwork?
I can show some of my artwork on my screen if you wish.
Oh, that would be fantastic. Sorry, Amanda, can you go back to Jonah's screen? That would be great.
Sure.
I'd love that.
Okay, so these are just some glances at some of the pages from the book. This is Deadpool, basically demonstrating how he can get his head blown off, but it could still regrow, and yet you can see over here that the neurons, they start one way, and then when they regrow, they start mostly the same. They occupy most of the same connections, but within his case, they don't always hit their mark, and so this is kind of explains how he's kind of going a little always off the rails a little bit. These are just different spreads from the book. So I really wanted a chance to show Ghost Rider's face burning off, in stages. When I was little, I really used to love drawing skulls and that kind of thing, and so this was right up my alley in that regard. Drawing Groot and showcasing how does the physiology of a tree creature really work? That was really fun and just wild. He's such a great character to draw, and being able to be the one to definitively explain how he works was really nice. And just drawing all these different characters. I loved Ghost Spider from the movies. I'm really excited about the next Into the Spider-Verse movie. being able to do the Hulk, was just like a huge moment for me. Where it's an anatomy book. I really like drawing muscles, and who's more muscly than the Hulk? So getting to draw all those cool green fibers was really nice. I don't usually do tech, and so doing stuff like for Iron Man and all that was really fun because he's such a iconic character with such a slick design. And then I got to create a character like this, which in my mind, she's all fully robotic, but there's something kind of otherworldly and kind of mystical about this character. This is a character named Jocasta, and she has this kind of like really weird haircut. And I thought it was kind of a funny haircut, but I thought, well, what if instead of that being hair, metal hair, it's actually all brains and sensors and that kind of thing. And so this is my opportunity to really invent things that go into the world. Trying to visualize the inside of Mr. Fantastic as he's moving around, realizing that he's not just moving individual muscles or bones, he is flowing on a cellular basis, or on an atomic basis, so that even his molecules are liquid. And then getting to draw characters like MODOK, who are completely ridiculous in design, but being able to rationalize their ridiculousness via this crazy looking anatomy. Super fun. And then there's favorites like Nightcrawler, where I had a friend of mine who's actually in the New York City Ballet. I had him pose for me for this picture because of all the different heroes, Nightcrawler is the most graceful. And I was like, yo, Adrian, help me out. And then I just replaced, the fingers and toes and gave the viewer an audience as to what his bones look like. And then, there's just all these great characters that I got to work on. This is explaining how the Red Hulk's skin heats up and ignites. Rocket Raccoon, aka Bradley Cooper. I love animals, and I love the potential and the idea of being able to show just how Rocket, who used to be a four-legged creature, was operated on and made to stand upright. His hips have been transfigured in new ways, and he's gotten these artificial collarbones that allow him to stand up straight and hold heavy weaponry, that kind of thing. And then being able to invent lore about the Skrulls, who are shape-shifting entities, being able to show what they look like under the skin, and show what they look like even as babies, where they have kind of a vestigial tail because they're reptilian in nature. Symbiotes, always fun. Got to show those in little vials, being violent and crazy looking as always. They're very fun and very dynamic. And then just again going back to like classics like the Human Torch and Venom, of course, going back to the symbiotes. And that's kind of a look at that book. It's big. It's 230 pages long. I worked my butt off on it, and I'm done, thank goodness.
Nice. One of the questions I have on this book is how much creative freedom you had. I know with the illustrations, but in terms of like the content, were you permitted to think of your own explanations for how a power would work, or was all that basically already written for you and just handed off to you?
I actually had a lot of freedom, kind of an amazing amount. I think the manuscript was well written, and it had some specific shout outs that connected back to real anatomy. And so being able to read those and open up my real anatomy book and take a look at what the real body looked like could then give me a framework to invent on there. And then generally I was really surprised. Marvel, as long as the idea I had was cool and did not stand in opposition to their lore, they were down with pretty much anything.
Oh, fantastic. So you have actually officially created canon in the Marvel Universe, just from your head. That is awesome. That is truly awesome. From that book, let me ask you, what are some things, I know you gave us a fabulous tour of it, and thank you for that. What are some things from that book that you developed that are now canon?
The idea that symbiotes can breathe through their tongue, through little holes in their tongue, that is Jonah Lobe original. The Skrulls, there's a new Marvel campaign starting now called Secret Wars, and it's all about the Skrull invasion. They are shape changers, and so I did a spread showing their skulls and their skeletons, and their skeletons are actually segmented, so it almost looks like plates of a reptile. and they're segmented and they're connected by cartilage. The idea being that if you're a shape changer, it's good to have a central skeleton that can help you stand upright, etc. But having it already kind of broken apart into lots of little pieces that are connected by a softer tissue would allow for much easier shape changing on the level of the bones. So we actually even coined a term for it, osteotectonics. And the idea being that like these, yes, the skin changes and changes color, but below that, their skeleton also can mold and shift and all that. So even that's an idea that if we see that in any other upcoming movies or comic books or whatever, that was a me one.
Oh, that is incredible. That's just amazing. So this is what I love about where artists can get inspiration, where you can deep dive into medical textbooks and see how things work, and then say, okay, well, what if it worked this way? And oh, that's so much fun. Right now, I'm thinking of the folks that I follow on TikTok in the fields of biology and paleoanthropology, who I think would absolutely geek out over the input that you put in that book. In fact, that would just be a totally fun discussion. Just bring some biologists together and talk about this, and man, that would be a whole lot of fun. So I envy you in that opportunity. So congratulations. That's so cool. What medium did you use? Is it all just digital art in like a program or what?
Yeah, in this case, yes. I used I did a lot of sketching in Photoshop, and then I brought it over to Procreate because I like the drawing tools in Procreate to do a lot of the line work. And then I brought it back to Photoshop and used my Cintiq to paint it.
Okay, cool. Very cool. I'm brand new to digital art myself, actually. I've done illustrations for many years, just pen and ink. So it's my first, it's a little bit of a learning curve. It's not quite as comfortable. My favorite medium before this, you're not going to believe it. There's no paper that I like more than Taco Bell napkins, actually. I have a whole series of artwork. It's the texture of it. And it's for that reason that I've just been hesitant to jump into doing art on a tablet, because something about the texture and the way it feels and the way it responds to the ink, it's just bumpy enough where I just love it, and I do my best work on those. So I know that's a totally random, bizarre fact. I'm going to absolutely keep that in the episode because I think it's cool, and I want to meet other Taco Bell napkin artists out there. So
well, there are screen protectors you can buy that make your iPad screen rougher, more like paper,
nice.
and you can maybe shop around and find just the right like Taco Bell style like texture to it.
Maybe I can get a sponsorship with Taco Bell. I don't know.
Exactly.
Who knows? So that'd be awesome. Okay. So there's so much more to talk about. I absolutely loved the beginning of this episode. Your entire story. About the giants and your dad. So this is the difference between when I interview somebody who's creative, it's got the human touch, versus somebody that's very, very technical. The technical part is interesting and like how is it done perspective, but like the story, that's what brings the humanity into it. I have quite a few bullet points with what you've done with the dragons and with the Deathclaws. Now, I'm familiar with the story already, but I know that our audience isn't. Can you tell us a little bit about the Deathclaw in Fallout 4? And Amanda, if you could you bring up the picture of the Deathclaw?
Yeah, sure. So the Deathclaws were really cool in Fallout 1 and 2, and those games came out when I was, in middle school, something like that. And the concept art for the Deathclaws from Fallout 3, which is the first Fallout game that we got to work on as Bethesda. The concept art was great, and it showed them they just looked very hungry looking. They looked like they really were like creatures of the wasteland, very lethal with long fingers and talons. And they had a great expression on their face, which is kind of similar to the expression you're seeing here. For Fallout 4, there were no plans to make Deathclaws. They weren't on the list, and it was unclear if they decided if there were going to be Deathclaws in Boston. I figure you have to have Deathclaws. It's a Fallout game. It's the scariest. It's the dragon of the wasteland. You have to do it. I also happen to know that I was leaving Bethesda. I was planning to move to New York and start my new life as a poor freelancer and an unpublished book writer. So I was looking forward to that step, but I knew that if I had left Bethesda and somebody else had made the Deathclaw, I would never forgive myself. And so I spent several weeks at home after work building out my own Deathclaw and putting nightly work into it. And I wanted to create something that looked tougher, that looked stronger, that looked more realistic. Because at that point, from when I worked on Fallout 3, that was in 2007, to when I worked on Fallout 4, which was in 2011 or 2012, before I left. I had just gotten a lot better as an artist, and so I just wanted something that just was completely believable, very iconic and hard to forget. And so I put a lot of effort into that Deathclaw model. I brought it into work one day, and I showed the executive producer, Todd Howard, and he just took one look and was like, "Yep, well, now we got to have him in the game." And the next day, even he came by my cube and said, "We've decided to put the Deathclaw at the end of the trailer for the game." And I thought,
Okay.
I did it. Great. So yeah, they're my
Oh,
babies.
fantastic, fantastic. Yeah. I specifically remember my first scene with that Deathclaw. It's funny. So I used to be a non-gamer completely. In fact, I was in high school when one of the Halo games was out, and I had friends who were obsessed with Halo. There's nothing wrong with Halo, of course, but I don't know. At the time, I felt like I had to grow in other areas, so I just like left video games for about 10 years or so. And it was my wife that brought me back into games, and I was very skeptical, but the game was actually Fallout 4. So I have a lot of, I really, really cherish that game. I realized games, at least in my experience, had come a long way in the time that I stepped away from it. There's so many things that I love about Fallout. I don't want to make this just about Fallout, but of course there's a couple of things I have to share. I was so impressed by the pacing of Fallout 4. I mean, it just keeps your attention, within the first, 10 minutes, you see a full-on nuclear explosion, and you actually get to see it as the elevator drops. I don't know who at Bethesda made that decision, but I mean, I just applaud that. That was fabulous. You know what I mean? That was amazing. And then, when you mentioned the Deathclaw, I think about one of the first missions in Fallout 4 is you're exploring this wasteland 200 years later. You free this museum, which I talked to Nate about. He was very proud of his museum, and I think he should be. Very early in the game, you get a full T-45 power armor and a minigun, and it's like, hell yeah, you have this incredible armor, but then you match that incredible high with, as soon as you jump down the building and you take out your enemies, the ground parts, and there's this, it's either the ground cracks open or a sewer lid opens, and a Deathclaw just comes right out at you. So you don't get that T-power armor just as a freebie. It was terrifying. Seeing that moment,
that was what happened when I brought the Deathclaw in. Is they decided, I think the reason he came back the next day and told me he was going to be in the demo is because I think they didn't quite know how to balance out that giving you the armor, because you want to give the player the coolest thing in the game at the beginning, and say, because it's a promise to the player, play this game and you're going to get this amazing thing. So you got to show it up, up close and up early. And I think probably what had happened is they designed a demo. You were in a tight spot, you got the armor, and you leveled the playing field. I think what happened is I brought that Deathclaw in, and then Todd Howard said, I know what we're going to do. And so that was in the plans from 6 months into the game. Or 6 months into the making of the game, and so even after I left, that was just that was the plan, and they did it.
Incredible. Oh, I loved it. Yeah. So, okay, Deathclaw inspiration. This is another fun topic. You know me, I like to talk about inspirations for things. I saw in another interview that it was roughly based on another character from an 80s movie. What was it? It was something that was supposed to be a combination of a bear and a potato, I believe.
The Rancor from Star Wars.
Okay. Oh, got it. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Very cool.
I posted Phil Tippett, who did a lot of the special effects and creature designs in all those fantastic movies like Star Wars, etc. He posted something, and I tweeted to him, the Deathclaw I based on the Rancor, and he tweeted back to me, the Rancor is a cross between a bear and a potato. Which I thought that is the essence of concept art to me. That is the essence of an original idea, is you take two completely normal things and you combine them and you create something that no one's going to forget.
Wow, Yeah, incredible. And that did it. The difference between your Deathclaw from Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, I think it just had it was bonier. Something about it reminded me a little bit of the Balrog from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
I think it was maybe the big horns.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah, I loved it. I think it did its job in terms of really. It was an adrenaline piece in that game. Other work that you've done in Fallout 4, I think you did a lot of the super mutants. Is that right?
Yeah, I did most of the super mutants and their armors. Yeah, I did the blood bugs. I did the mole rats. I did the Mirelurks. I did the Mirelurk kings. I did the Deathclaws. I did something else I've forgotten. I did Preston Garvey's outfit. I did some architecture pieces, that kind of thing.
Preston Garvey. Oh, yeah. I've had a lot of fun conversations with him. I saw a cosplayer that did Preston Garvey, and he went around everywhere saying, another settlement needs our help. I'll mark it on your map. He'd interrupt people, and he really nailed it. So quite funny. I'm curious with the super mutants, what were you given for inspiration and about the final product?
For their anatomy, basically, I think the real hook here is that they're giant, super strong green men. So the question really becomes, how do you make that not look like the Hulk? And so in Fallout 3, what they did is, I didn't design them for Fallout 3, another woman did. She created translucent skin, right? So they're kind of these brutish characters you can see their red muscles through their green skin. I did not go that route, but what I really appreciated about the concept art, and when I was talking to the concept artist, Adam Adamowicz, who actually passed away during the making of Fallout 4, he'd come up with this idea of these characters as kind of being babyish in appearance. So little faces, little ears, not very big hands, very pudgy, very round domes. So they kind of swelled up kind of like watermelons, and they also, their bodies kind of sagged kind of like taffy. So even though they had all this musculature, they were ultimately kind of soft looking. And so that was the direction I took the super mutants in Fallout 4, and I'm really pleased with the result.
Oh, wow, yeah. Very cool. When you mentioned sagging, I'm also reminded of a picture that I tried to find on your Instagram and I couldn't find it. Maybe I didn't go down far enough, but there's a couple of glowing pictures that you drew that also have that same appearance of the sagging skin. That is a fascinating story. On your podcast, you're talking about ideas that didn't make it into the Fallout lore. If you don't mind, I might ask you about this on this show as well. You wanted to design a giant glowing one. Can you tell us a bit about that story?
Yeah, I was on the way out at Bethesda. I knew I was leaving, and I wanted to contribute things. I loved Bethesda. I loved working at Bethesda, and I wanted to just give all I could before I left because I knew that the chances of me coming back were pretty slim. And I was inspired by a sculpture by the sculptor Giacometti. Alberto Giacometti, I think it is, and it's called The Walking Man, I believe, or Thin Man, I can't remember. But there's something very eerie and cool about it, and I decided I wanted to create a giant glowing one in the vein of Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. It's a retro idea. This idea of this person is exposed to radioactivity and they grow to 100 feet tall. But this was that, but Fallout-ized. So it wasn't, instead of just a giant person, it was a giant person who was just being transformed into this giant, melting, horrible nightmare. And so the idea of a glowing one, and the idea of the feral ghouls in general, is that the radiation, rather than killing them, keeps them alive and keeps them constantly regenerating. And so I thought, wow, wouldn't it be affecting, and wouldn't it be something that you've never seen before in a Fallout game ever, if there was a Titan, like Shadow of the Colossus or something, that just wandered the map. And it was this giant elemental of pain and radiation, and you couldn't get too close to it because it was just spewing radiation. And around its feet, you would have feral ghouls and glowing ones running and raiding along, wherever he walks. He's just kind of doing his thing, going like, "Aah!" But he's being followed by just roving herds of feral ghouls who are empowered by his radiation. And so I thought, what a cool roving boss monster that would be. And in typical Fallout gruesome black humor fashion, I went with the name the Maypole, as this idea of like, I imagine these like cute Danish girls dancing around a maypole, and yet here you have the Fallout version. So I never got into the game. I gave the model to them when I left, and they never used it, so I just tucked it under my arm and just went home. And I don't think we'll ever see that in a Fallout game, but it's a cool idea.
Yeah, I'm reminded of a thing we have here in New Mexico every year. We have the burning of the Zozobra statue. Not statue. It's like a giant puppet. I don't know how tall it is, but it's also called Old Man Gloom. And every fall, there's this ginormous puppet that moves and it groans exactly as you said. And it's got like everyone's bad things in their life that they want to burn. They're all tucked into it, and they light it on fire at the end of the night, and it's this giant flaming, groaning thing that just burns into a million pieces. So
love that.
So yeah, we've got something similar to that here. So that's why I was kind of impressed by your story. So,
I dig it.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. So, and actually, what I'd like to do is I don't want to spend. Time flies. We're actually a little bit over the hour, but I'm gonna keep pressing because there's more I wanted to do.
Sure.
There's so much on your Instagram. I was hoping that we could spend a little bit of time and just go through it, and you can tell us about some of the standout pieces on your Instagram, just the stories and the inspiration, what you tried to capture, if that's okay. Amanda, can you go to the Instagram and just go down slowly, unless you prefer to do it so you have control, which would be easiest for you?
I suppose it would be easiest for me to do it, just because I can go at my own rates, I suppose.
Sure.
Okay, let me, if I can do this. Oh, we have sent you a code on your phone.
Oh, dual authentication.
That's okay. It's better to be safe than sorry. No one on the stream look at this code. This is a trust policy, you guys.
Yeah.
All right.
Very cool.
All right, I did it. Okay, let me just pull up my account. Okay, great. Share. Okay, so these are mostly, as you're seeing here, my most recent posts have been about Marvel Anatomy. There's Sandman, there's Thanos, there's Hulk. Some of these are videos. I like to make little music videos sometimes that kind of get me interested, get me going. This is a little promo for one of my YouTube videos. So I do a lot of YouTube videos about art design and all that. So this was the King and the Council video we were talking about. Before the Marvel Anatomy stuff, and I got to go down a little bit because I started doing that a while ago, I sometimes will post Skyrim content or Fallout content. That's how most people know me after all. So it's kind of important for me to constantly be beating my own drum, that kind of thing. So I'll put some of that content up there. Random gigs that I get from clients. This was just trying to design a unique looking skull. That's always fun. Looks at previous past projects. So this is a 3D creature I called the Night Stepper, and I made him into a little pendant. And I tried to decide, what would this creature look like as a actual piece of jewelry. So I modeled it out, and I did a quick prototype, that kind of thing, and then I got it. Actually, based on this prototype, I made some corrections, and then made the final version, which are these necklaces here. And I was going to sell them at Comic Cons across the country, and then COVID hit. Fun times. Here is the Mirelurks from Fallout 4, but just the model, not the texture, just so people can get a sense of the kind of detail that goes into it. And yeah, then I do have other random concept art of things that I've done, just ideas I've had, that kind of thing. These little, shouts out to some Etsy creators who created some Dragon Priest masks. And then pen and ink work. I have pen and ink work that I show. I really like this medium as it is so completely different from my other digital work. Um, and so I'll
Oh,
include
that's
a lot of
beautiful. I
that
love that one.
throughout. Which one?
Oh, the one I was looking at is the one to the right of that girl. That one. Yeah, the line. I mean, wow.
I really like the idea of mermaids as being much scarier than,
Nice.
like there's the idea of a siren as being kind of this like desirable, like alluring character, and I can imagine that being the case from afar. But I really like the idea of them being actually very cold to the touch and very creepy
Nice.
looking. And so yeah, did that. Um, Yeah, so as you can see here, just a great a confluence of 2D work and 3D work, just showing off things I've been working on, projects like that. Um, and it runs the gamut, really. Here's some swords I made in 3D that I can show off the videos about, so you can get up close looks at them. This is for a game that I made that I never actually saw the light of day, unfortunately. Um, yeah, here's another sword I'm pretty proud of. This is called the Sword of Who, and it's no, sorry, this is not the Sword of Who. This is the farmhand, and so you got these kind of double oxen along the guard. I did two different concepts, bits of art for it, but basically, yeah, just showing off both my 3D modeling abilities and my visual invention abilities. That's kind of where I'm kind of in the intersection of those things, where I'm both the concept artist and the actual 3D designer.
Wow, that's incredible. What is that from?
This is from that game Fireborn that never saw the light of day. This was one of the creatures. This is called a greed demon, and I love the animations on this. I did not do the animations; somebody else did the animations for that. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Like a larva.
they're super fun because they're so gross.
Yeah,
That's
that's horrendous. That's in the best way possible. In the best
yeah,
way possible, that is horrendous. Wow,
yeah.
wow.
Thank you.
Do you find that you have a preference between 2D and 3D?
These days, my preference is 2D. I really, really like that it's a realm that I have so much more to discover in, and I feel like I learned a great deal about 3D design based on this is for Quiet, by the way, based on those 7 years of Bethesda, and I just think that 2D art is drawing my attention much more these days because there's so much more to learn. I'm so much more behind in it, and so it really
Oh yeah.
presents some unique challenges. And to me, life is all about challenges because that's how we grow. Is we embrace challenges and we embrace difficulty. So
Oh wow.
that's
May I ask? So I'm aware that the new iPad Pro with the M2 has this feature with the pencil where it has a little circle where it shows you where you're about to draw before you draw or something like that. Is that what I was seeing there? It looked like.
I'm not sure. I couldn't tell you for sure. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay, okay. That little. Okay, okay. All right. That's great. Oh wow, that's beautiful. That's incredible. Awesome. I don't know what time we'll be kicked out, but I wanted to ask you just in case we're kicked out soon.
Sure.
Is there anything that you would like to plug on this episode for our audience? Any of your own work or work that you want to support or anything at all?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, if anybody who's watching this wants to support me or follow along on my journey, I will be working on Quiet about twice a week on Twitch, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I'm going to be doing R&D on that world and sketching out the characters, sketching out the villains, that kind of thing, and getting a sense of where things are going, because I do intend to launch that Kickstarter this year. I'm also on Instagram. You can follow me there, and I would really ask that anybody who learned something today or wants to see more of my work or might learn more about my thought process, come visit me on YouTube. I'm making a big push on YouTube this year. I have a series at the moment called Painting Marvel Anatomy, which is basically one episode per hero, demonstrating how I create the art for those books. So those are the ways that I am most active and most enthusiastic right now, and I'd love for anybody who watches this to join me.
Nice, very cool. Interesting. As a creator myself, I have found YouTube is actually one of the harder ones to grow on. I have podcasts that are available on just the audio form, and those seem to grow without a whole lot of effort at all on my end. They just grow and grow and grow. But with YouTube, I'm not sure how their algorithms work, and I'm not trying to knock them. Oh, okay. We have 3 more minutes. Excellent. But yeah, I found YouTube is a very challenging one to grow on in the beginning, at least for me. So I don't know quite how to crack that egg yet. But yeah,
me neither.
Follow Jonah's. Sorry?
Me neither.
Oh yeah. No, it's hard. I'd love to find. I'm sure there's a way to do it, but it's different than the audio platform, and I wasn't used to that when I first released on YouTube. So we will figure it out. So awesome. One other question I had. So as a journey as an artist, what's been interesting is, I've thought about how much fun I've had with it. I'm here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which has a local art community, and we, in recent years, have a lot of film done here. But I was curious how location specific it is to do the kind of work that you do. I know that you live in New York. Would it be much more difficult to do what you do even with remote work if you lived elsewhere?
No, what I do, you could work from anywhere. I'm here because it's a great city, and my wife works here, but I work fully remotely, and yeah, I don't think everyone can say the same. I think there's, but when it comes to the game industry, there's actually not a lot of action in New York, and when it comes to the concept artist industry in general, if you like art in general, this is a great city to be, but I'm not trying to book art galleries or anything. I'm just trying to make cool stuff for movies and games and fantasy stories and book covers and that kind of thing. And so my success or failure at the moment is largely contingent on my online presence and online activity. And thus far, I've had very few geographic barriers. Yeah.
Nice. And I know that in various artistic industries, like video games, for example, I think might be a little more location specific. Do you know if that's changed post-COVID?
I think it's certainly shifted in the direction of favoring remote work. I think especially on game projects, when everyone has like a one directory that they can all connect to. So you can work remotely but still be working on the same project. That makes a big difference. I think creatively there's always a very powerful argument for working in person, because I think one of the things that allowed Bethesda Game Studios to thrive with those particular projects like Fallout 3, Skyrim, and Fallout 4 is that the project and the company was small enough that everybody could get up out of their seat and go talk to a colleague. Yeah,
I hear you. So. Yeah, it's a balance between being remote and working together. So, yeah. Well, I think that actually about does it for our 3 minutes. They'll probably come and turn off the camera soon. But Jonah, thank you so much for being on the show. Also, your support on Twitter by getting me in touch with other artists, that is huge. I greatly appreciate that. I have, in fact, my next guest is. One of the folks that you tagged, so thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. And I still love playing Fallout. It's kind of a tradition with me and my wife. Oh, super quick story I'll say in 30 seconds. My wife and I both played. She spent all of her time, all of it, on the building mechanics. She wanted to make houses with comfortable beds and with pictures. She wanted all of the settlers to be happy and healthy. It was kind of like Animal Crossing to her. We're in the exact same game for me. I was out there trying to build bigger weapons and conquer more territories and stuff like that. So I just love how it had something for everyone, So it was like Animal Crossing and like a post-apocalyptic Animal Crossing for her. So I thought that was cool. So
I love it. I love that those kind of games provide that kind of freedom.
Yes, sir. Awesome. All right. Well, we look forward to more of your stuff on YouTube and on Twitch and everything else. And thank you so much for coming on the show, Jonah.
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks everybody for watching.